All right, West Virginia fans, it's hard to believe the 2025 West Virginia football season is in the rearview mirror. In tonight's episode, we're going to break down all things Mountaineers and break down the season that was. To do that, I have my good friend, Amit Batra. Amit, how we doing?
Doing well, man. It's hard to believe that the season's over.
It feels like just yesterday we were doing the Big 12 preview show in July when our channel was very young, and then we did the season preview show too. So it goes extremely fast. I think it goes even faster when you don't make a bowl game,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. But how we doing tonight, Amit?
It's going well, man. There's a lot of good college basketball, so I've been flipping the channels tonight.
Yeah, I've been really paying attention to Twitter right now, and looking at those things online to see who's hitting the portal
Yeah.
and the coaching carousel. I think that's something I'm paying attention to right now. It's definitely flip season. Tomorrow is National Signing Day, which is a big day around the West Virginia football program as well. But before we get there, why don't we talk about the team this year and some of the things that happened this year? What do you say, Amit?
Let's do it.
Before we do that, if you're a West Virginia fan, please remember to like and subscribe to JerseyEER. We really appreciate it. All right, so let's start off with the first topic, and this is probably the hottest topic of the season, Amit, and that was injuries. I mean, it's kind of hard to believe how injured West Virginia was this year, and it really hampered the team. Amit, look at this graphic here: Jaheim White, Jaden Bray, Nico, Ty Edwards. That's just a handful of guys. Do you think these guys could have helped the team?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it kind of all started with that Ohio game with Jaheim and Jaden Bray, two guys. Obviously, we were expecting a lot out of this year, and then Nico and his situation, and him only playing a handful of games as well. And then Ty, I mean, he had a great game against Pitt. I know we're going to talk about that. And then, we kind of expected him to take over those duties at running back. And then, we don't see much of him. So it was just kind of, a theme of the season where, you were relying on the third string, fourth string guys often. And, it was just tough to overcome throughout the season.
Yeah, it was so disappointing. My heart broke for Jaden Bray, especially because he's a guy that back to back years now has had injury issues, and right when he was starting to get going, he gets injured. We're gonna look at some stats in a second. He had 7 catches in 2 games before he went down. Who knows the type of player that he could have been? There was 2 coaching staffs admit that were really hyping up Jaden Bray and had a lot of positive things to say about him. And the fact that he got his season taken away so early was a shame, and it really hurt the team.
Yeah, he's had some bad luck in his career, and it's unfortunate to see. And I think he would have been a huge playmaker as far as receiver. I mean, I think we could have definitely used him, definitely in some games. But yeah, it was a tough situation just to see him go down when his history as well.
And then I think we all remember where we were when we saw Jaheim White on that tackle. It's an illegal tackle, and it did not look good from the beginning. It sounds like he's rehabbing well, but before the season started, we were talking about possible how many yards Jaheim can get this year. We were talking about a 1,200-yard back, 1,100-yard back, and it's just a shame to see he didn't even get a chance to perform this year. He changed his body in the offseason. It was just a really tough blow.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And yeah, we were talking, 1,000 yards. How many yards is he going to get before the season? And then, I mean, he was having a great, first game and a half. I mean, he had 2 touchdowns against Robert Morris. And then I believe he had another one against Ohio before he went down. So, I mean, he was looking like he was going to be the guy. And we expect him to be the guy this year. And yeah, it's just a tough blow overall.
And then Nico Markiel, really interesting what happened there, right? Played more than the other guys and showed flashes, looked okay versus Robert Morris. Did some decent things in Pitt, even though he got benched in that game. Kansas was when the wheels really came off, and he looked really limited. Amit, did Nico have the same burst this year that you think he had in prior years?
I think he looked a little slow at times, a little sluggish, maybe more so than previous years. I thought, obviously he's going to be remembered for that game and the end of that game more than anything, I think. But I think he's going to always come, he's going to be one of those what ifs at West Virginia. Because, I mean, yeah, if he stays healthy and maybe if, things kind of work out differently, then maybe he has a better career. But I think he's going to go down as one of those what ifs at quarterback at West Virginia.
Yeah, I think so too. I think he's a guy that had a high ceiling, but never really hit that ceiling. I think he was kind of limited with his athletic ability in this offense. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with him this offseason and what he chooses to do. I got to be honest, I thought he would have already announced that he was going into the portal officially after the season. We have not seen that yet from him. Amit, where do you see some landing spots for him if he does choose? Do you think he's a power four quarterback, group of five? Like, what do you think about Nico hitting the transfer portal if he decides to go?
I could see him going down to the group of five level, personally. If he wants to see a lot of, playing time, I think that's probably his best route, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. He was touted, in high school and everything like that. I mean, we were very hyped, when he came to West Virginia. I believe he was a four-star guy, out of Arizona. So, we had high expectations for him, but I think for, his future, his best route is probably going down a level a little bit.
Yeah, so I remember watching him on Three Guys before the game, and he seemed like a really mature kid and said all the right things. He's a guy that stayed loyal to the program over the year and wanted to play for Rich Rodriguez and was saying all the right things in the offseason. It would have been interesting to see what happened to Nico if he did stay healthy, if they would have continued to run him out there, or if um, he would have eventually got taken over by Scotty Fox. That would have been another big what if, because there were times that they brought in Scotty Fox in the game. I mean, you remember the Pitt game, they
Yeah.
brought Scotty Fox in off the bench when they were looking for a spark. They did it against Ohio. They did it versus Kansas. So it was kind of interesting to see what their plan was for Nico Markiel. I'll tell you what, we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but his former coach Neil Brown was just hired by North Texas. Who knows? Maybe that's a landing spot where he can play, where he had some success under Neil Brown.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That definitely could be a landing spot for him. But I mean, even then, like with all the quarterbacks, could they have performed to their potential with the O line, right? I mean, that's going to be one of the talking points I'm sure we're going to get to. But the O line is probably going to be one of the biggest priorities going into next year, I would say.
Absolutely. And let's talk about Ty Edwards, man. You and me were watching this game together, the one game that we chose to watch together. And before the game was happening, I remember like pounding the table. Ty Edwards, Ty Edwards. I hyped him up all off season. I was so excited to watch him play. And he goes off, and it's like, man, like we really found our running back. It seemed like he was able to even do some things because of how big and physical he was. He could even make up for somewhat of a bad offensive line. And before his season even takes off, it's over before it even starts.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he had 141 yards, 3 touchdowns against Pitt, and we're like, all right, we found our guy. We were wondering after Jaheim went down who was going to be the guy that takes over. Between him, Bowers, right? And he emerged as that guy, and then we're like, oh, we're excited going into Big 12 play, and then you barely see him the rest of the year. So, just difficult kind of a theme of the season. Just injuries were a big part of the season, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I think last thing before we move on from injuries, do you do you think the injuries limited this roster, and do you think it's it's harder to evaluate Rich Rodriguez in year one because of the injuries?
I mean, I think it has to go into play for sure. I mean, I don't know how many teams in the country are relying on the third, fourth string guys in certain spots, right? And key positions as well, right? So, it's something you deal with, unfortunately, in football, of course, but it's also, we did not have good luck this year as far as injuries. So I think it has to go into consideration for sure. But it's a part of football as well.
Yeah, coming into the season, my blueprint before the season started, I said if West Virginia is going to be successful year one, they got to stay healthy,
Yeah.
and that was the biggest roadblock to the season was just the amount of injuries. So hopefully they can get that squared away for next year, have a little bit better luck, and let's move on. So let's get into some stats now, right? And Amit, once upon a time, when we were young bucks, when we were in college, we saw a quarterback named Geno Smith put up nearly 700 yards. He had like 7 touchdowns and like five incompletions. And then there's times where I text you watching a game. I'm like, Amit, we have 47 yards in the first half passing. So let's look at these stats. Scotty Fox, 1,200 yards passing, 7 touchdowns, 6 picks. Let's start off with him. Just your evaluation of Scotty Fox and the way he played down the stretch.
Yeah, no, I think it's absolutely a bright spot, right? I mean, we saw him against Pitt, throws a couple interceptions. We're like, oh man, but I mean, then you think about, all right, he's a freshman, right? And then I think that TCU game is where he emerged, and you're like, all right, maybe we have something here, right? Because we had 4 or 5 game stretch. We're like, all right, is there any quarterback capable of making plays here? And then, obviously he was able to get some confidence from that TCU game, and we saw some good things moving forward. Obviously, Arizona State too. I mean, he put up a lot of yards, right? So I thought he started to get more comfortable with his guys, and we definitely have something moving forward with him.
Yeah, I think he was one of the brighter spots in the season. Just a really tough situation that last game versus Texas Tech, right? I mean, you're playing against one of the best front seven in football with one of the worst offensive lines in football, and it just wasn't a recipe for success. I had a feeling that was going to happen. I knew he started like 4 or 5 games, and I knew he really had to make his mark leading into the last one. Um, has shown flashes, not always the most consistent guy. I think the biggest question that we're going to talk about in this offseason is what are they going to do in the portal for the immediate future of the team, right? Some fans are going to say they think they've seen Scotty do enough. Others are going to say bring him back, but maybe have a gap year where he sits and learns for a year and have him in case of emergencies. And then others are going to say, he could just walk away in the portal too because he might have some options. Personally, I think Fox would have options if he decided to leave, but I think his best case scenario is to stay with the Mountaineers. Do you really want to roll the dice and go start over into a new quarterback room where you're not familiar with the system, you're not familiar with the coaching, and you don't know what other guys are going to bring in? Or should you stay here? You had some success with Rich Rodriguez. Be patient if they bring somebody in. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I think I would love to see him back on the roster next year. However, I do think you still have to hit the portal because you want depth, right? And you want to have multiple guys capable of performing. Because I mean, that was a situation this year, right, where we had multiple guys, and you're like, all right, we need multiple guys who can perform, right? So I think would love to have him back, but also I think you do have to get somebody out of the portal for sure.
Yeah. So the other thing too is it's really hard to evaluate him too because he didn't have much help around him. Let's face it. I
Yeah.
mean, the offensive line, that right side of the offensive line, which we're going to talk about later in the show, there was times where they just completely whiffed and he had to do things on his own. He was never really fully comfortable. So I think it was a great learning experience for him, but it's really hard to evaluate a guy in his true freshman season with not much help around him. We talked about Nico Markiel, and then you can kind of see the other stats. There's not really much to talk about with the other guys. Amit, out of all, it's kind of funny to see Cam Vaughn has more passing yards than Max Brown, by the way. Amit, at all the guys here, how many guys are you bringing back in your quarterback room for next year?
I mean, I think the only one that you can't really lose, I would say, is Scotty Fox, to be honest. I mean, I don't know if Nico's future is at West Virginia, to be honest, or, if he goes a different route. But I think Scotty, we've seen enough where we can be like, all right, you're comfortable with him coming back, right? And then, I mean, speaking of the O-line, I sent you the stat earlier today, but WVU quarterbacks sacked 31 times over the course of the season, which is pretty insane.
Yeah, I mean, Scotty Fox had 15 on his own. You can see right there. Nico 9, Khalil Wilkins 4, and Jalen Henderson 3. So yeah, it was not a good year for the offensive line, and they're trying to do as much as they can for that. Let's get to rushing stats, Amit. And again, not much better in the rushing category. This was probably the biggest reason why we weren't successful this year, and it's not even the running back's fault, right? I mean, there was a stat after it was either the Utah or BYU game where Dior Hubbard had more yards after contact than he did rushing yards. So that means that he was getting hit in the backfield very early. So Dior Hubbard is the leading rusher for the team, but 335 yards rushing as your leading rusher. That's super alarming. Only averaged 3.5 yards a carry. Sincere Bowers almost had 250, but he had only 63 carries, but he had a few long ones there. Khalil Wilkins ran the ball a bunch. Scotty Fox ran the ball a bunch, and Henderson. And then you can see Ty Edwards here. And then Jaheim White in 2 games had 133 yards. I mean, what are your just overall thoughts on the running back position this year and where we go from here?
Yeah, I thought obviously health played a major factor here with Jaheim and, what the expectations were going in the year. I think this room will be fascinating moving forward, especially next year, right? When you bring hopefully a lot of these guys back, right? With Dior, Sincere, and Jaheim, if he returns as well. So I think, it was tough. I mean, I think Dior Hubbard and Sincere Bowers showed a lot of flashes towards the second half of the season. I mean, Hubbard was a big part of the Houston win for sure. And then Bowers, we're going to remember his play against Arizona State. I mean, you had his, the number one play of the season, which I totally agree. I mean, that was a fantastic play. And then, I mean, you saw some good things with Khalil Wilkins. I think the BYU game, he was able to do some good things on the ground. But yeah, overall, I think just health played a major factor here, and it was kind of just tough to, move on from, certain situations.
Yeah, let's face it, man. Like when we think of a Rich Rodriguez offense, you think of a run first offense, and a lot of times, and we saw firsthand if you don't have a good running game, you have you have no chance at being successful or moving the ball. So if they're going to be successful next year, they are going to have rushing numbers much better than this. I mean, going back, not to sound like the old man, but Tavon Austin against Oklahoma had what 300 yards rushing in one game, and our highest guy of the season had 335 yards. For a long time this year, Khalil Wilkins was holding that down as the backup quarterback, as the leading rusher. So it'll be interesting to see which guys come back. Hopefully Jaheim White does. I think he'd still be the lead back. Ty Edwards is interesting because he had that waiver issue earlier in the year, but he technically only played like 1 or 2 games this year. So that's interesting. And then Bowers and Hubbard. I think Bowers is a player I put on my top 10 player list to retain because of his explosive ability. And Hubbard is obviously the leading rusher. So I'm sure they're going to bring guys in through the portal, and I'm sure guys are going to leave on their own accord. It's going to be a really interesting time at that position next year. All right, let's get into some receiving stats, Amit. So before the season, you and me did a top 5 list of who we think are some top guys. We did decent on that, right? We said guys like Cam Vaughn and Rodney Gallagher. We said Jaden Bray. Unfortunately, the injury happened to him. I had Grayson Barnes in that list. Just your overall thoughts on the room and how they did this year.
Yeah, obviously, Cam Vaughn is probably the standout guy here. He was kind of that home run hitter and, hopefully a guy that, you can bring back. I think, Jeffrey Weimer showed some flashes towards the second half of the year. Grayson Barnes is going to probably be remembered for that Pitt touchdown for sure. But yeah, I was really expecting more out of this room. You see Rodney Gallagher didn't have any receiving touchdowns, which is kind of unfortunate this year. But yeah, it was really just expecting more out of this room, to be honest. There really wasn't, as much playmaking ability as you would hope at this position.
Yeah, I thought Jeffrey Weimer, and we'll talk about him in a little bit. I thought he was consistently down the stretch one of our best receivers that we had, and it's a shame that his season got off to such a slow start because of the waiver and didn't really practice. But Cam Vaughn, let's talk about him, right? I think he made some news this week, right? He was definitely our most dynamic playmaker on offense by far. I'm sure he had a little bit of a disappointing season in his standards, though, only finishing with 35 catches. But it's really hard when you're constantly going 3 and out and don't sustain drives and things like that. I think if he had a better offensive line in front of him and other weapons to complement him, I easily see him getting like 50 balls.
Absolutely. I mean, you see the potential. Obviously, he was kind of that deep threat, and he was probably one of the more reliable guys on the team as far as receivers and everything like that. And you see his talent, right? And I think if you are able to get him back next year, he's going to just skyrocket, and his total is going to get better and better.
What were your thoughts? Did you see the play the other day? Let's talk about that real quick. That was a controversial thing. I'm sure you guys have seen it if you're watching the show. There was a really bad underthrown ball by Max Brown. It looked like Cam Vaughn was open. It was just a frustrating day overall. Cam Vaughn didn't make too much of an attempt to come back and make the tackle on the play, kind of kept running off. I wanted to get your quick thoughts on that play and just that situation.
Yeah, no, obviously tough situation. Don't love, the effort for sure, but it was kind of just one of those days, right? It seemed like nothing could go right from, just a team standpoint. So I get it. I'm sure it happens in football, but you would definitely love to see, the effort a little bit more, I would say.
Yeah, there was times where his body language wasn't the best this year, for
Yeah,
being honest. You could tell the frustration and things like that. That does get me nervous, to be honest with you. If he is going to
yeah.
hit the portal, he's the one guy that was my number one guy that you have to retain. Let's do a fun little exercise about him real quick. So receivers over the last few years, right? We have like guys like let's go last year, right? Traylon Ray, Hudson Clement. Do you think he's better than those guys?
I would say so, probably. I mean, I definitely love Hudson Clement. I mean, I think he's a player, but I would say just from athletic ability and a playmaking ability, I would say Cam Vaughn's a bit better than them. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say Cam Vaughn's probably the best receiver we've had since like Caden Prather or like even
Yeah.
like Bryce Ford Wheaton.
Yep.
I think like the ability is there. Like you can
Yeah.
see the flashes from him. You can see the ability for him to get up and get a ball and with more consistent time at the position, I think he's going to really shine. He's only been playing the position for like 2 or 3 years because he was a high school quarterback. So my hope is that he comes back. I think for me, I'll forgive him on the tackle thing if he comes back to Morgantown next year because I definitely want to see him grow in the offense. He is a player that I want back. But at the same time, if he does decide to walk, I also think he's replaceable with how much talent we've seen in the Big 12. So I want him back. I would rather have him than not have him, but I'm not going to panic if for some reason that didn't happen. Is that
Yeah,
fair?
absolutely. No, for sure. But you definitely, I think with the wide receivers, you definitely want, more home run hitters, I would say, more like big time playmakers, because you didn't really see it too much this year, besides him maybe. So I think you need, more guys who are capable of, making big time plays at this position.
Let's talk about Rodney Gallagher. I mean, what are your thoughts on him? 28 balls, 243 yards. They try to. It's two coaching staffs now. They've tried to do things with him. What are your thoughts on Rodney's game overall and where he goes from here coming into his senior season?
Yeah, I don't know if he's definitely, hit his potential as well, to be honest. I mean, he had a pretty good game against Pitt. Other than that, though, this year, I just, you just are hoping to see him break out a little bit more for sure. Zero touchdowns. That's kind of unfortunate as well. You root for him because he's a local guy. He's been faithful to the program, so I definitely want to see him break out and live up to that potential.
Yeah, I think wide receiver is something that West Virginia needs to get aggressive at
Yeah,
this offseason, and they need to bring in proven guys. And some power four guys. We've tried the lower level guys, and it hasn't exactly worked out. Cam Vaughn did, but Weimer did to an extent late, but Oren Singleton, a guy that you didn't even stick around this whole season. Justin Smith Brown, who caught a bunch of balls. We brought in guys from Slippery Rock and Youngstown State that didn't really have an impact. We need like 3 or 4 guys deep in this room, especially who knows with Jaden Bray next year, right? I mean, you're coming off 2 injuries now. Who
yeah.
really knows what the future is for Jaden Bray going into next year? Hopefully he's healthy, but I think you really need to protect yourself at this position and add some depth at that room.
Yeah, you really need it in the Big 12. There's no other way around it, right?
Once upon a time, I meant we had Stedman Bailey,
Yeah,
Tavon Austin,
that's it.
J.D. Woods, Ivan McCarty, Devin Brown, the transfer from Wake Forest,
David Sills, Gary Jennings. Yeah, you got some big time playmakers.
the White brothers.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
yeah. All right, let's go into defensive stats. So admit this graphic, I messed this graphic up now. If you look, so sacks, Reed Carrico is the leader with 4.5. So this is got messed up a little bit. So Reed Carrico had 4.5, Chase Wilson had 3, and things like that. So we said before the season it was going to be Jamori Robinson. We'll talk about him in a second. But are you surprised that Reed Carrico is the leading sack getter?
a bit. Yeah, we had Jamori. I think both of us had 8. So yeah, definitely didn't live up to that. But you saw flashes with the defense. I think they started off the year really good. Fred Perry was obviously a guy that we're both going to miss tremendously. He was fantastic throughout the year. And then, yeah, you had some playmakers, obviously Darian Lewis, Reed Carrico, Chase Wilson, and so on. But I think there was some good and there was some bad for sure this year.
After this, what's it called? After the season, I thought, Jamori Robinson would have more than that, but he definitely didn't. Fred Perry was the leading tackler for West Virginia, and I had him before the season. You said Chase Wilson, but those
Yeah,
guys were both outstanding players. Your sleeper had a really good season, and that
yeah.
Darian Lewis had the 2 interceptions this year, got them early, and overall, the only problem with this graphic is a lot of these dudes are seniors, man.
Yeah, no, for sure. Very, very new to the program. And some of them were able to make an impact, but yeah, tough. You're gonna have to regroup, which they're starting to do from a recruiting standpoint. So it's good to see.
Yeah, I think guys that made an impact, younger guys, Curtis Jones Jr., even though they played running back at the end of the season, Ben Bogle showed some signs. Guys like Jason Chambers isn't back, but Nick Taylor, those guys definitely made some impacts later on in the season. All right, let's get into the wins and losses. So let's recap the wins. Robert Morris, Pitt, Houston and Colorado. Amit, what was your favorite moment from the season?
I mean, I think you're obviously going to say Pitt, just the way everything, kind of transpired in that game. Just a back and forth, obviously rivalry game. It's kind of Rich Rod's, statement game early on the year. And you improved to 2-1 coming off that Ohio game. So I think that was big at that time. Obviously, the stretch after that was tough. But and I think, Houston was a great win as well, right? You're trying to get that big time win in the Big 12. And, to beat a ranked team at that time was big time. And it gave you some confidence kind of ending the year.
Yeah, so the Robert Morris game was ugly, with the 4 fumbles. And I was concerned after the Robert Morris win because not because of the fumbles, but more because the offensive line wasn't pushing them around. Then the Pitt game happened. That was like we felt like we were back, and then we came crashing down after that. But that Pitt game, no matter what happens, the rest of Rich Rod's tenure, that's a game that will be remembered from in Morgantown for a long time. That was no doubt one of the best wins that we saw as West Virginia fans. Houston was really encouraging. They went on the road. They were big underdogs in that game, and they showed grit, and that's where they really showed their potential. And then the Colorado game, I wasn't shocked that we won that game. Colorado was pretty banged up. They had both their tackles missing. They were starting a true freshman quarterback. Granted, he balled out, but I had a feeling we were going to get that one based on how we played the few weeks prior. So those were the wins. I was hoping we get more than 4 wins. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we both at least hope for a bowl game. I think with that Colorado game, the biggest thing was the 7 sacks. That was big time.
They got him early, man. They were
Yeah, pressure was great.
Allie was dialing it up that game.
Yeah,
for
yeah.
sure.
Was hoping to just at least get a bowl, but what we're gonna get to, I know we're gonna get to it, but you definitely had some winnable games to get there.
Yeah, well, we said before the season, man. You said, what are your expectations for the season? What would be a failure? And we said anything less than a bowl game. That's what we both said. And I wouldn't say it was a failure, especially because of the way we played the second half of the season.
Yeah.
But I would say it's fair to say it was a little disappointing.
Yeah, no, absolutely, for sure. I mean, I will never ever probably be happy with 4 wins personally, but considering that you had winnable games as well, was definitely just hoping to get to a bowl. But I think brighter times are ahead.
Yeah, this was the lowest win total we've had since 2013, which I think was your senior year, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was my senior. Yep.
Yeah, I got to go back for one more after that. I got to see us, kind of we had an exciting season the year after. Kind of fell apart at the end, but I'm glad I got one more year. That was in my last year. All right, let's talk about the could have had. And these ones are tough because if you get 2 of these, you're looking at a bowl game. So let's start off with the Ohio game. Just a game that we were all nervous about heading in. If you weren't nervous about it, I don't think you were paying attention to their program at the time, their quarterback, and being truthful with where we were at, and the game was on the road. They took a catch off the board from Cam Vaughn in that one that would have changed the game. Amit, was the Ohio loss the low point of the season?
I think so. Being that, we were definitely discussing trap game and everything like that, but you just can't have it, right? And the defense did everything they could to keep you in that game. You scored 10 points, right? And you get 3 interceptions. You can't lose a game when you get 3 picks. Parker Navarro, he's a good player, right? But you get 3 picks. You shouldn't lose that game. And then, just where we are as a program, I don't want to lose that type of game personally.
Yeah, it almost we had this hype, and the hype, if you remember, like leading into the Pitt game, was blowing up like a balloon, and we got the win versus Robert Morris, and Hard Edge is back, and we all knew if you can just get through Ohio, even if it was ugly, even if you looked bad, if you got to win the season, if you get Ohio, you beat Pitt, you're 3-0. That really changes the vibe of the season. Once you lost to Ohio, it really took the air out of the balloon, and it was a wake-up call as a fan base, I think. A lot of the times you've seen the comments in a few years, we look like a MAC team. I'm sure you've heard that. And so we've lost to a few group of 5 schools now back-to-back years. We lost to Memphis in the bowl game last year. We now lost to Ohio. So to me, I can take blowout losses in the Big 12, but losing to a MAC school like that was extremely disappointing to me. That was a low point of the season. And let's face it, if they get that Ohio win, I think there's a good chance they make a bowl game. I think there's a chance they get the other ones. Once you didn't win Ohio, I think we all were like, where else are we going to get wins this season? I think that's really what hurt them. The TCU game, right? I think out of all 3 of these games, This one was the one that was probably furthest out of reach. I think the other two were more winnable based on how the games ended. But admit West Virginia hung in there. They started Scotty Fox. That was his first uh, start at home, and they almost got an onside kick at the end of the game and fought in that game.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You're at home, and Scotty Fox was kind of his breakout game. You were finally able to say, all right, maybe we have something here at quarterback, right? And yeah, I mean, you hung tough against a good team. So, no, I don't think there's as much shame in this one personally. Being that the weeks prior were very difficult to watch, so you were finally like, all right, we're competitive in a game. So
Yeah, and then Arizona State was one that, man, it felt like the season ended after we lost that one, especially with Texas Tech. It felt like the kids, actually they're kids, they're grown men, but and they're getting paid now more than we are. They fought like heck in that game, man, and they made it really interesting. One or two more plays of converting on fourth down. There was a few calls where they decided to go for it instead of take field goals. It felt like we really should have had that one in Arizona State. That was an opportunity for a win.
No, 100%. I mean, you had 421 yards on the day. So yeah, you hope that results in a win. And just that play from Bowers at the end, you really wanted to win for that for that play, right? But yeah, that was a tough one. Definitely a winnable one, and yeah, just one that you would hope they would get.
Like I said, if you would have gotten these, I think that these are the changers of the season, right? You get two or three of these, you're looking at a 6-6. You're heading to a bowl game and feeling
Yeah.
really decent about yourself and the momentum for next year. So these were the missed opportunities for West Virginia on the schedule. And then, unfortunately, Amit, there was a bunch of games that were not even close. UCF, we got absolutely dominated after the bye week. Utah, we wore the throwback uniforms, and they gave us a throwback beatdown. Texas Tech thumped us 49-0. BYU, maybe that's not fair. That's like in the category of its own. It was kind of interesting at the end, but not
Yeah.
really. And then Kansas was the first Big 12 game, and that was another eye opener. Amit, which ones of these stick out to you?
The two that really stick out to me are Kansas and UCF because I just don't think that they're like dominant programs or anything like that. They're five win teams, right? So I think Kansas is disappointing because they're coming off that high of the pick game, and then you get absolutely smoked. And then UCF is another program that just shouldn't destroy you like that, right? And I think it was alarming just being that the offense was so hard to watch at the time, and you were just giving up a lot of points, and it was over very quickly, right? It was just difficult stretch to watch those games.
There were so many low points in the season now that we look at it. The UCF game I thought was rock bottom,
Yeah.
because it was just that was a winnable game. It was like the two teams that were struggling the most in the Big 12 besides Oklahoma State, and then we go out there and get absolutely dog walked. And then they had more athletes than us. I know we're injured, but man, that was a bad look. The Kansas game was an eye opener. I was hyping up Rich Rod's return to the Big 12. That didn't go good, and I had a Kansas fan hop in my comments after that game talking trash, like "Welcome to the basement." Kansas, you're in the same spot as us. I mean, let's face it, you're probably in an even worse spot. You're losing your probably your greatest quarterback you've had in a long time. He's out the door, so you didn't get up to a bowl game. Lance Leipold's overrated, but that's for another day. BYU was a solid team. I thought we played okay against them, but then Utah and Texas Tech, you could just see the athletes, and we had no shot in those games.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Utah, Texas Tech, two of the top teams, as well as BYU in the Big 12. BYU, I mean, at least, you were able to hang around. But, yeah, Utah and Texas Tech were just difficult games.
It's kind of crazy that Penn State was looking at Sataki. That's great. Penn
Yeah,
State.
yeah,
They're getting pretty desperate over there in State College. I mean, before
absolutely.
we switch gears, who you got, Texas Tech or BYU this weekend?
I like Texas Tech.
Yeah, same. I think Texas Tech is. I think they could go on like a deep run, like Final Four run. I think they're that talented. All
Yeah.
right, best performance of the year. I'm gonna go with Ty Edwards. 25 carries, 141 yards, averaged 5.6 yards a carry, and 3 touchdowns versus Pitt. He's gonna go down as a backyard brawl legend. Is this the best performance of the year?
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. I mean, he was an absolute beast in this game. Just when we needed some guy to kind of emerge at running back, and after Jaheim's injury, he was that guy, and it came against Pitt, right? So that's big time. So just unfortunate afterwards, you couldn't really see much of him after this game. But yeah, he was tremendous this day.
I think the only thing that could even replicate it, and probably not even, is like Scotty Fox 300-yard game.
Yeah.
versus TCU, or was it Houston, the other one? So maybe those, but not the dominant. This guy took over the game. That guy
Yeah.
changed the game. When he was in the game, he changed the game for West Virginia. So that was the best performance of the year. So shout out to Ty Edwards. You didn't play many games for us, but you had the best performance of the year, and you're going to be remembered for a long time because of it. All right, let's talk about the wish we had another season. This is a fun clip. It's a bittersweet clip, I should say. So we all know we brought in a ton of guys in the transfer portal. Unfortunately, a lot of those guys are seniors, so there's going to be a lot of roster turnover this year. So I put a couple guys on the graphic that I wish had another season, and then I'll get your thoughts. Chase Wilson, a guy that played his heart out this year and just showed really good leadership for West Virginia in year one coming over from Colorado State. Jeffrey Weimer, a guy that stayed patient and found really good success. He was just starting to get going, so it's unfortunate that he's done. Michael Coates Jr., I think, is a guy that has a chance to play in the NFL. I think him and Fred Perry are probably our best shots to make it to the league. Devin Grant's an underrated guy that came over from Incarnate Word, bounced around from Colorado and Incarnate Word, but had a really nice season. Fred Perry's going to go down as one of my favorite defenders we've had ever. And then Jordan Scruggs, I just like the way that he played. He was a little bit undersized, but with the passion that he played with, I really just appreciated the way he played. Amit, who are some guys that you wish had another season that are out of eligibility?
Yeah, I would definitely say Fred Perry is one of them. I mean, he was all over the field, and you could just feel his impact, right? He kind of had like that Carl Joseph in him a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm very unfortunate that he's only around for a little bit as a Mountaineer, but I think him, and then I mean Scruggs had that big play. Oh, that's probably one of the biggest plays of the year too against Houston, right? That pick six. That's probably up there as well.
That was number two. That was number two on my list. I had a top.
Yeah,
So if you haven't seen it, if you're watching, I
yeah.
had a top 10 plays this year. And I had Scruggs at number two. Number one was Sincere Bowers run versus Arizona State.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of these guys, had some, key performances throughout the year. But I think if I had to pick one, I would choose Fred Perry out of this list.
Yeah, I would say so too. I think Fred Perry by far. I would take him back each and every day. I saw some stupid tweet. Some guy, he's like, "Is it?" Fred Perry had two back-to-back personal fouls, and it was like, "Is Fred Perry worth having on the team because of the personal fouls?" Literally a second after he tweeted that, he forced a fumble and got it back. It's like, dude, give me a break. That guy was worth it. He was a great person in the program. I would take a million Fred Perrys and take the penalties because he lived the hard edge mentality. Some guys say they're hard edge. He was hard edge. I appreciate him. I don't care how many personal fouls he had. All right, let's talk about disappointing seasons. And I think this is fair. I usually don't like, bashing players because, they have families and things like that. But at the same time, these guys were brought in here to make plays. And I was hyping them up this season, and they just didn't have good seasons. I'll go down the list, and you can tell me what your thoughts are. Orrin Singleton, a guy that caught like 70 balls, 60 balls at Eastern Michigan. He had like 4 catches and dips out, doesn't even finish the season. I thought that was disappointing because I thought he had talent. Jamori Robinson probably is going to go down as one of the most disappointing players that West Virginia had. I hate to say it. I know his season was cut a little bit short early on because of the waiver situation, but he had the entire Big 12 play, and to finish with a half a sack is not what we paid him for. It's not what we brought him to Morgantown for, and it was disappointing. So hopefully they can use those funds for other players next year. The two guys are hand in hand here, Kimo Monacchioli and Tykees Crawford. I thought Crawford was a lock to be a solid player. He got some decent starts at Arkansas and played a decent amount of football. But these guys consistently, if you watch that right side of the line a minute, they were just letting guys run free, and they were a major reason why we struggled offensively this year. And then the last one I have to throw in there, even though he was injured part of the season, was Jalen Henderson. Jalen Henderson, I pound the desk for a little bit this season too in the offseason because his film looked so good 2 years ago at Texas A&M. I thought he could replicate that, but that was not the case. He looked rattled when he got in there, was turnover prone, and just never got comfortable as a passer. I rambled a little bit there. Disappointing seasons for you.
Yeah, no, I would agree with this list. I think with Jalen, I mean, I don't know how confident they were with him throwing the ball, to be honest. You kind of saw it, right? They didn't seem comfortable with him throwing the ball.
He started the Utah game, and I think we attempted 5 passes in the game, and we were getting crushed. It's like,
Yeah.
how you can't run the ball every play.
Right. And then, I mean, the O-line just had major concerns throughout the course. We talked about the amount of sacks that they gave up and everything. And then all the jet sweeps and everything. You're like, oh man, this is not fun to watch. But I think, I mean, if you had to pick one, I'm gonna go Jamori because we hyped him up so much going into the year. Obviously, he doesn't play the full season, but I mean, even then when he comes back, I mean, you're just kind of waiting for him to kind of show up, right? And we just didn't get it really. So
Yeah, I don't know what the deal was with him. There was a time, like he had flashes, he played and he had some quarterback pressures, but he's not the player that we signed up for with him. And I think there was one game where they didn't even let him play because his preparation in the week wasn't up to their standard. And it's just like, man, like what are we doing here? So, just he's gonna be remembered as one of those guys that had a lot of hype, but just didn't live up to that hype. Unfortunately, I wish him well. Who knows? Maybe an NFL team will take a flyer on him because he was the AAC Defensive Player of the Year 2 years ago. He had 10.5 sacks. So it's not like this kid can't play, but he just didn't play at the powerful level. I don't know. We'll see what his future holds. I think a team will take a flyer on him, but I'm not sure if he sticks on the NFL roster moving forward. All right, Amit, let's talk about the bright future real quick. So, really quickly, just your thoughts about the future of the program and your expectations for the next few years.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there is some bright spots for the future of the program. I think right now, recruiting wise, I think they have a focus. I think that focus is the O line and the secondary for sure right now, as we're seeing. I think Scotty Fox, should be getting back. I mean, I think he has a bright future. And I think the running game as well, if the guys are able to stay healthy, right? And then if you have Cam Vaughn, I think he's going to just get better and better, right? I think Curtis Jones, we saw some good things out of him towards the end of the season as as he becomes a running back. But I think there's a lot of bright spots. I think right now we're number 30 in the recruiting rankings. And you're I think number 3 in the Big 12, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere around there. So
Yeah,
um,
tomorrow is a massive day. I mean,
yeah,
there's a chance of it since we've been on here that someone committed since we've been on here, right?
yeah,
So, it's getting crazy. The tomorrow's National Signing Day is going to be, I feel like it's going to be the craziest national signing day since we've been following the team. Usually you kind of know what's in the fold. You might get one or two flips, but there are so many guys out there because of the coaching carousel right now that West Virginia is making a push for that. I think tomorrow has a chance to be a crazy day.
yeah, absolutely. I do like what I'm seeing from the recruiting standpoint. I mean, Rich Rod has mentioned that he's going to fix it. He knows what he's doing. But I think next year is a big year, right? I mean, let's not sugarcoat it. I mean, it's going to be a big year. I think you have to get, in my opinion, around 7-8 wins for my taste. As far as you're seeing progress with the program, right, and you're seeing improvement. So that's my expectation going into next year, and I hope they can do it.
Yeah, Rich Rodriguez, I trust him when he says he can fix it.
Yeah,
I don't think he's blowing smoke, and I think it really means him to make this right. And let's face it, he doesn't want to be embarrassed. That dude's, I think it seems like after Saturday's game, he was like, "I'm going to go recruit now," and like I think he is a man on a mission to get this thing right, which is a great thing for West Virginia. Just look at some of the guys they brought in. I'm not going to highlight names because I'm sure I'm going to get to that point at some point this week with the recruiting class and highlight that, but the secondary guys that they brought in are like 6'3" big
big guy.
defensive backs
Yeah,
because you can see this year there's times the defensive backs are trying to make a play on the ball. They just didn't have the size or ability to and we were getting beat on 50-50 balls. And
right.
it looks like they're trying to bring a bunch of juke. Right now they're trying to bring as many JUCO guys as they can in so that when the transfer portal class comes, like when the portal class goes, they're going to try to bring in like 12 dynamic transfers, like game changers, but not have to fill the whole class with question marks. I think that's the route they're going to go.
Yeah, no, absolutely. They're definitely going the JUCO route. I mean, I think getting guys like Kevin Brown and trying to get the O line right. I think is going to be. I think right now for me, O line is probably number one priority. Secondary is right there as well. But you definitely need to win in those categories to get better.
The O line battle is going to be fascinating to watch next season. I think with Kevin Brown, he's a true freshman. I think he has a good chance. I don't think they're bringing him in to sit
Yeah,
behind anyone. I'm rooting for my boy Rhett Morris. I know he has
yeah,
some high hopes. The room got a little bit crowded, because they're bringing in some guys. But let's face it, he's a true freshman, so who knows what's going to happen with him. A lot of people are hyping up Camden Goforth on the offensive line too, another commit who does a really good job with his stuff. So you see the JUCO guys are bringing in. We haven't even gotten to the portal yet. This room's going to be really interesting to see what happens over
yeah.
the year. I think for me, I do think it's a bright future. I think we've seen enough. at the end of the season that they're going to turn this thing around. I think the pieces are here if we can stay healthy and we can hit on the right guys and have a better portal class this time. I think the chances for next year to make a significant jump are there. And let's face it, a lot of teams do the year two omit, right? I
Yeah.
did a video a few weeks ago, Ashore, on this is not this is not year one's always a challenge. By year two, year three, you see the jumps, and I think we'll take a similar jump next year. All right, before we get out of here, we talked enough about West Virginia. Let's talk about our boy, our old friend, Neil Brown. He's a head coach again, Amit.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm happy for him, right? I mean, I rooted for him at West Virginia. He's a good guy, just didn't work out, right? Like that's the results speak for themselves. So there were tough years, but I'm happy to see him get another opportunity. I think he's very familiar with the Texas area, which is going to help him from a recruiting standpoint. And sometimes you just need a fresh start, right? And I think I wish him well. I hope he does well there, and good to see him get another opportunity though, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, especially after the way like a guy like Darren DeVries and like Don Putzlite
Yeah.
left programs. This guy didn't do that. I really wish it would have worked out with him because, if you remember when we hired him, he was saying all the right things. He was such a
Yeah.
different person than like Dana Holgerson, who didn't really give a rip about the culture or about the fan base or apparently bringing in former players to walk around the facility. And Neil Brown did. He just didn't get the wins. He was in a really tumultuous times around the program with NIL and the transfer portal. And COVID, like he went through a lot of changes, not to make excuses for him. He didn't get the job done and it was time for a change, but I'm happy for him. Like you said, I wish him well. It'll be interesting. One of the things I'm going to keep my eye on is how many former West Virginia players reunite with Neil Brown, right? I mean, Nico Markiel is a guy that might be looking for a new home. Not to say that Nico's going to transfer from West Virginia, but I think there's a good possibility of that. A guy like Traylon Ray. Traylon Ray went to Ole Miss, was injured, didn't play much this season. Lane Kiffin just left. Maybe he's looking for a change of scenery with his former coach that gave him a chance. There's some players here that have been floating around that are former West Virginia players that could make it to North Texas.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's kind of interesting because obviously Ren was at North Texas, so I'm sure they contacted him a bit. But I think they were looking to move quickly, and I'm just happy for Neil. Like you said, I mean he's a good guy, stand up guy. You wish he was going to find success, but overall,
And his staff too. They did a really nice job holding that high school class together last year during National Signing Day. We didn't even have a coach, and we ended up signing 85% of our commits last year. So they did it. So I think because he did right by us, maybe they did right for him when going to North Texas. Yeah, the North Texas trade's crazy. You guys get Neil Brown, we get Ross Hodge. Really interesting times for college athletics, for sure. All right, Amit, we talked on here for about 48 minutes. I think we needed this. I think this is a good last time to talk about the season in the past because I got to be honest, man, doesn't it feel like the season was like 25 years ago now?
Yeah, no, absolutely. But yeah, I think there are brighter days ahead. I think the recruiting, everything with recruiting is going to be fascinating moving forward in the coming days, coming weeks. And I'm excited for the future. And then, we have basketball season now to look forward to.
Yes, I know you and me talked, Wake Forest game, either Saturday night or Sunday morning. Maybe we'll do like a Sunday morning coffee show and give our recap of the game from the night before. We'll have to see what my schedule looks like. Very busy man over here, Amit, with my family life going on right now. So listen, man, I appreciate you coming on. It was fun. Brighter days ahead. I think it's time to look forward and instead of looking back now. But we have 8 months to talk about it. We have a long time.
Long off season.
We have 200 something days. So we appreciate you guys again. Definitely remember to like and subscribe to JerseyEER. We'll talk to you guys next time.